You are watching Access LaPorte County, Channel 97. Coming up next is the August 26, 2022 meeting of the LaPorte County Election Board. You can find more information for this meeting by visiting www.accesslaportecounty.org.
Today is Friday, August 26th at the regular meeting of the LaPorte County Election Board. We would do I'll call the meeting to order. If we could start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. And it is 12:02 p.m. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll start with roll call. Chuck Watterson, President, present. Nelson Petrardo, Vice President.
Present.
Heather Stevens, Clerk and Secretary.
Present.
All right, we have a quorum. First order of business would be to consider the approval of previous meeting minutes, which we've all reviewed. Anyone have any issues with those?
No.
Okay, I would make a motion to approve those previous meeting minutes.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Those meeting minutes have been approved. Next on the agenda would be public comment. Good
Hello,
afternoon.
everyone. Rodney McCormick, 617 Union Street, Michigan City. Election time is amongst us, and as usual, we have individuals who like to violate state statute. Throughout the state of Indiana, you cannot put up election signs up until 60 days before the election. It must be within 60 days. But yet, we have a candidate, Sean Fagan, with the help of his campaign manager, Ron Meir of Michigan City, the same Ron Meir that has had numerous charges for intimidating officers and other things going around, putting these signs up all over Michigan City. Everybody else's signs are down. When some candidates was informed of it, they immediately took them down right after the Grand Prix. But yet, because of personal dislike of the current prosecuting attorney, Mr. Meir and Sean Fagan has decided to violate the law. It's disheartening to see an individual who's running for the head of our prosecutor, that he wants to be the head law enforcement officer of our county, and he's violating state laws. I hope and I pray that we don't have a double standard here in Michigan City, in this county. And I hope that one of you will reach out to Michigan City Building Inspector office and ask for them, or Skylar York, and ask for them to start removing those signs. Those signs need to be taken down immediately. We need to follow the law, especially someone who's running for prosecuting attorney office. He should know better. He should know the law. On another note, we've been patiently waiting for our elections to be held in the same uniform manner that is held here and everywhere else in this county. For some reason, you continue to disregard our request to get those elections out of the schools. The Democrats was such a pain and they would refuse to do it, and now we have Republicans, your chance to make it right for us in Michigan City. There's no need to keep putting this on the back burner. We need this to be changed immediately. I think we all agree on this. Quit talking about how hard it's going to be. Let's just get it done. Get these elections out of Michigan City area school buildings. Our kids should not have to miss days, or we shouldn't have to have a e-learning day, which is also a failure. We don't need to do this to our kids no more. I do have kids in Michigan area schools, and it's a big inconvenience. And I'm tired of the double standard and tired of the excuses being passed around. I'm here to tell you, if you guys refuse to do this, come election day, I'm going to refuse to vote for you. And I'm going to vote the other way around. I'm tired of this. Get the elections out of the schools, please. Thank you for your time. Keep up the good work. Let's do something this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
I'd like to respond to Mr. McCormick real quick if I could. Mr. McCormick, we are working to get the elections out of the schools. This is something we have been working toward. However, we voted there in the spring, which means we need to vote there in the fall. So bear with us, and I know I've said this to you. Bear with us. This is something that we are working on. We're all three of us are well aware. So we understand.
Any other public comments?
Just a short comment. Kevin Harmon, 421 East 6th Street. I gave you guys hard copies of the doc file I sent to Heather about the situations I was experiencing, and hopefully it'll be resolved before too long. I did talk to the chair of the church, and at that time nobody's been in contact with her. So I guess Ms. Stevens said that they're starting to get in contact with her. Hopefully that's going to happen sooner than later, because otherwise we may not have a location for MC13 if we can't get them to agree with all the terms of what's going on. So I'm really concerned about that. So we'll see what happens. All right, thank you.
Anybody on Zoom have public comment? All right, it seems that nobody on Zoom has public comment, so we will close public comment at this time. Move on to the new business. We'll start with discussing the commissioner's position on taking control of the mobile voting unit. We'll just open this up for a discussion before any motions or anything are made. Obviously, for the public, the commissioners at the last meeting discussed taking over the mobile voting unit by having people check it out from them because their name's on the registration. And there was a discussion on the process of doing that. I don't think anything was discussed as far as the process at that meeting because we asked for a chance to be able to talk about it amongst ourselves at this meeting. So that's why we're here today, and I guess we'll just go down the line. Nelson, if you want to address this.
Are we going to address all the points under new business under this topic?
No.
Because the next one is the process of obtaining the mobile voting unit for use.
Correct. So I think when I drafted the agenda, I think we can table the second one, discussing the process.
Okay.
And we can discuss that at the next meeting.
Okay. So right now we're just discussing regarding the commissioner's position.
Correct.
Yeah, I think I made my comments and opinion pretty clear when we went. I think we were all at the commissioners' meeting. The whole purpose of this van is to allow the entire public to use it, right? We want an efficient way of doing that, and I think that the most efficient way and the most productive way of doing that is to allow the commissioners to have the keys and have control of the van. I also think that they're in the better position to upkeep the van. They have more resources. We've discussed it previously, making sure that the battery's not dead, making sure that there's gas in it, all these little things that it's really, not up to us as the election board to do that. There's employees in the county that can certainly handle all of those things. We don't need, we don't need you, Chuck. Excuse me. We don't need Chuck, having to spend his own money, go out there, fix the van so it can just run for a particular day or whatever. So that's something that I think would be alleviated by allowing the commissioners to have the keys, to have control of it. I also think that the process would be a lot more streamlined. And again, that goes to the whole purpose. The whole purpose of the grant was to make sure that, obviously the grant was very broad, but this is a bipartisan tool that we want to use. And as of right now, I think it's being underutilized. And a good way to make sure that doesn't happen is to have the commissioners take control, in my opinion. So with that said, I'd fully endorse the commissioner's position and their request to take control of the mobile voting unit. I will say, and I guess this would be under discussing the process of obtaining it, but I want to make it known if we're tabling it. I think we all should be made aware of who's using it and where and when. That's number one. Number two, I think the county party heads should have a say as well as to where it goes and who's working the mobile voting unit. You know, that process needs to be vetted. So it's not just whoever goes in there and grabs the keys and takes it, right? Obviously, we can't have that. But there should be a say from this board and also from the county party heads as to who's using it and when and where. But I think that's a lot faster and a lot more streamlined, like I said, than having to have a meeting and come back and, you know, approve a list. I think that's just that's not productive. So with those two elements to meet in order to use the van, I think I would you know, totally be in favor of that. And again, like I said, I would endorse the commissioner's position regarding taking control, because I just think it's going to be better for everyone in the county to be able to use it, to be more efficient, to be more productive, and also it takes the headache away from us in the sense of having to upkeep it, having to maintain it, and things like that. So that's my position.
Okay. Me or you? Sure.
Okay.
All right. So the purpose of the grant when this was originally applied for is broad in a sense. So the purpose, I'm just going to read it word for word. The grant funds must be used exclusively for the public purpose of planning and operationalizing safe and secure election administration in LaPorte County. I think that the mobile unit should remain in the election board's possession and control to avoid operating it against the purpose of the grant, because the grant it specifically says secure election administration. Who administers the elections in this county? The election board and the county clerk. I personally do not have any issues at all with the commissioners providing input on where the mobile voting unit goes or where it would best serve, and that applies to anyone in the public, in all honesty. If we would love to hear your thoughts on where the mobile voting unit goes. So sure, the commissioners can give their input. The public, we want your input. Party heads, we want your input on where this unit goes. At our next meeting, because we're going to table that purpose of discussing the process, we're going to provide a list of locations, dates, times for the mobile voting unit in regard to the unit being used as a polling location, because that's the only time we have to provide public notice or have a meeting is if this is going to be used for a polling location. So as far as registering people or anything else that involves the administration of the election, we don't have to have a meeting for that. Obviously, we'll give the public notice so that they know it's going to be here at a certain time. But that's where we want the party heads to come in and give us, if they want to use the van, let us know. They can appoint their people. It's bipartisan to use the van for that purpose. But if it's being used as a polling location, we will give public notice, and we'll discuss that at the next meeting. So we encourage the party chairman to provide their input on where it should be. It just allows for a bipartisan decision. Finally, my biggest issue with the mobile voting unit, again, it's a van ultimately, and who has control of it is kind of semantics, but for purposes of the grant and for the election process, I think the election board needs to maintain control over it to administer the elections, because that's our job. And ultimately, as my final point, each commissioner in this county is an elected position. If the commissioner's office has exclusive control over this mobile voting unit, I believe on its face it kind of shows views of impropriety in the sense that parties with a skin in the game would now be administering a part of the election process as it pertains to the mobile voting unit. Again, as an attorney, the mere appearance of impropriety, not saying there is, the mere appearance is something we always want to avoid.
It is.
Having an elected person or a group, a board, be in control of an item that's used to ultimately elect people for positions, I think just looks improper, and that's something I want to avoid. And I think this can all be avoided by working together as separate units of the same government
to assure that everything is checked and balanced. That's the point. You provide your input, we'll provide our input. Ultimately, I think it's our input on administering the elections that should matter and ultimately control this. That's my position. Heather, do you have anything?
Yeah, I have a few things to say. I know that gas, where the gas money is going to come from, even to use it for the polling locations, has been an issue in the past. And Commissioner Haney did reach out to me today, and he has offered to meet us with his gas, his county gas card, and fill the van as needed. As far as maintenance for the van, I'm happy to go to the council to request additional appropriations if needed. But I wholeheartedly agree with Chuck that this is, first of all, these are not our elections, they're our elections. And we want to make sure that these are as safe and secure as possible. We want the simple, you could see it at the commissioners meeting, you could see the split in the room. And that's exactly what we don't want. This grant is for election purposes, and as Chuck said, the chief election official in the county is the clerk of courts. So I can see the fights already, I can see the battles, and I don't want to be in the middle of that. If there are issues, again, that's my name attached, and I'm not comfortable with that. I did take the van to the highway department. Well, that's where it's located. They requested a key. I went, I had an additional key made. I gave it to them. They fixed the van, and they returned that key to the commissioner's office, not to me. So right there, that's a problem. I drove that key over there, nobody else. So I just want to make sure that if this thing is going out just for public use, for registering voters, for whatever, that things are just being done in a bipartisan manner. I would love to see a nonpartisan manner, but that doesn't really happen. So, but I'd like to get as close as we can. And as Chuck said, if it's being used to register voters or to do whatever, this is not something that we have to have a meeting for each time. A request came to me for the van to be used for mobile voting on October 29th at the Hope Center, but they weren't certain of the location. So I said, verify the location, get back with me, and we'll get it out there for you. That is something we would need to discuss, but I've not heard back from them. It was suggested by one of the commissioners that we get it out to every festival. First of all, there are fees attached to the festivals. You have to rent booth space. We had not done that. Nobody did that. And it was suggested that the two voter registration co-directors, work those festivals. I don't have a problem with that. It was also suggested that those ladies use comp time and adjust their schedules through the week. I have a problem with that because in 2018, that's exactly what I did, and I was told that I could not do that. So what wasn't good for me can't be good for someone else. So again, I want to make sure that everything is fair. I want to make sure that the people that are in that van know what they're doing. I don't want voter registration to end up with a bunch of paperwork that's no good. I don't want that. They don't want that, and the voters don't want that. So again, this needs to stay in the possession of the county election board.
And I will make that motion to keep the mobile voting unit in the possession of the election board for purposes of operating safe and secure administration of elections in LaPorte County. Is there a second?
There's a second, but I'm gonna have to rewatch the video to write that down.
I'll send you. So the motion was to keep the mobile voting unit in the possession of the election board for purposes of operating safe and secure administration of elections in LaPorte County.
So I just have a question regarding your motion. Say the commissioners go back in their meeting and vote over this. What authority do we have?
Oh no, I fully expect that.
Okay.
I do too.
So we're all on the same page regarding the fact that we may not have the authority to even do this.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I also think that it jeopardizes the grant.
And that was part of my, spiel, but, so we have a motion and a second. Now we'll go for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 I'm gonna vote it down. I'm gonna say nay.
All opposed?
Nay.
Nelson, okay, so 2-1, motion carries, for now. So, at this point, we've just got board member comments, now that new business is closed, because we had discussed the process of obtaining the mobile voting unit for use. I would love to discuss that today, but we probably need to wait until after September 7th, to discuss that, just to avoid, talking about a bunch of stuff that we may or may not be able to. And then finally on the new business was just previewing what is to be discussed at the next meeting. That should be under board member comments, I think, and I'll just talk about that now. So at the next meeting, which is likely going to be September 16th.
Chuck, but before, I don't mean to cut you off, but I'll move to table points 2 and 3 under new business.
Second, okay. Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's tabled. Thank you, Nelson. I was getting ahead of myself. So now I'll move to board member comments. And I'll start at the next meeting, which is likely going to be September 16th. We're going to discuss a few things. First of all, the certification of the candidates. Did we find out the hard deadline on that yet?
No.
Okay. So there may or may not be a meeting before that to discuss certifying the candidates. Another thing we're going to discuss, hopefully at that time, would be the process of obtaining the mobile voting unit with all the locations, dates, times that unit's going to be. Early voting locations, because that's coming up quicker than we know it. About where those locations are going to be. We're going to have the 4 locations still. It's just a matter of how often and in what capacity they're used for early voting, but they will still all be used for early voting. Was there anything else that we would discuss?
I don't think so.
Okay, and we'll probably be discussing the mobile voting unit again. And as far as the board member comments, Mr. McCormick, I agree with you with getting the voting out of schools. Unfortunately, since we did the primary, we have to do the general, but then we have nothing but time with the municipal in 2023 and hopefully getting this resolved before 2024. And finding spaces for these to go, or having voting centers, which would be ideal. Voting centers that we could just get rid of the schools in general on that, for voting locations, not for education purposes. And then to address Kevin, what you said, we're working on that with the clerk's office to make sure we mend any fences. I think there was a miscommunication between someone who previously was there. And didn't relay that information to the person who is now running that center. That's just what I have from secondhand information. But we're going to mend that fence so we can have MC13, and we appreciate them letting us use the Southwind Emmanuel Church as a location. And thank you for bringing that to our attention. Other than that, I'm done with my comments and hope everyone has a good weekend. Nelson?
Yeah, thanks, Chuck. First, you mentioned the certification of the candidates. I think that should be done sooner rather than later.
Yeah, correct. But the school board deadline, I believe, was just minutes ago. Okay.
Okay.
We
So
couldn't have done it today.
yeah, right. So maybe in a week or two, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's totally appropriate. I guess I wanted to address a couple of things. So regarding the mobile voting unit, I think regardless of whether or not this board keeps the keys or the commissioners keep the keys, I think either way we're having safe elections. I don't anticipate there being any ill intent on either side of wherever the van is used. Again, the entire purpose is to be able to use it as much as we can, and that's just not happening right now. As far as the grant goes and the purpose of the grant, I don't see any issue with the election being compromised anyway by where this van is kept or who has control of it. And what I'll say about that is, if, let's say, one of the party heads for the county comes and says we want to use the van, here or there or whatever, and it's a bipartisan vote and everyone says it's okay, that's still serving the same purpose of getting your candidate out there and getting your name out there, and it's in a bipartisan manner, as opposed to whether or not, you know, the request comes through the commissioner's office. I don't see how that's any different. So I know someone said something about, well, you know, it could be seen as an impropriety or you know, appearance of impropriety, but I think it's the same thing. I mean, you know, it's being used for the same purpose, regardless of where the request comes from, because again, you're using it in a way to help effectuate the election. So that would be my comment regarding that. Again, I was really involved in getting all this done for the county, and I really, honestly, just want to see it used. I want to see it, you know, out in places, you know, getting people registered. That's the whole purpose, and whatever way that's going to happen is what I would support. And at this point, it seems like the commissioners just have the ability to do that. We don't. We're not here every day, you know, doing stuff every day. Heather has a million things going on. You know, it just makes common sense to me. That's just my opinion regarding that matter. So I guess we'll continue the discussion, and then again, also, I don't even know if we have authority to, you know, I'm sure we can make our opinions known. Obviously, we can do that. We're a board, but ultimately, the commissioners are going to make that decision, and we're likely going to have to fall in line with it. Regarding Mr. Harmon's comments, he brought up something important too in his letter that he wrote, and that this is something that we have to look at in the future. And it's regarding the amount of money that we're paying some of these locations. I think this, from Mr. Harmon, what he explained to me is that the Southwind Emmanuel Church, which is MC13, we paid them $75 to use that facility. Is that accurate?
That sounds right.
Yeah. So and maybe in the future we'll want to look into those numbers, because that seems pretty low to me for a whole day when we have people coming in and out, and that seems like something we could work on to make it more enticing for some of these locations. And then regarding Mr. McCormick's comments, I totally agree with you. I think it should be out of the schools, but it's a practicality situation. I mean, we need to find other locations, and that's where we run into issues. There's a lot of these school locations, and then having to find it within a particular precinct is very difficult. So maybe if we raise the amount of money that we're paying them, we might be able to attract, you know, some other ones outside of the school. So that's my thought process we're around that. But it's not that, you know, no one wants to do it. It's just, I think it's very difficult to find locations that would be appropriate and able to be used for the election day. Ultimately, you know, voting centers would resolve all of that, and so I think that's something that we need to continue looking into. Regarding the that's all I have. I won't address that other issue. I hope everyone has a great weekend. I guess we'll let the public know when our next board meeting will be after we hear from the commissioners. Is that my understanding?
Essentially, yeah, I think it's going to be the 16th. That's the most logical.
Okay.
Because the 9th would be 2 days after, but I figured 16th will give us time to prepare a process if we need to. You know what I mean? Heather, did you already go?
No.
All right. Go ahead.
So I'll tell you right now, I know we've all discussed getting the polling locations out of the schools. How can we get the polling locations out of the schools? There's nowhere else to vote within that precinct. There's been a million reasons not to get them out of the schools. So here's what I'm doing, Mr. McCormick. I have delegated a lot of my daily responsibilities to my chief deputy and my first deputy. And I am going to spend the rest of the year working on the 2022 general election, the re-precincting in LaPorte and Michigan City, and vote center plans, so that we can finally get our voting out of the schools. So the goal is to implement the vote center plans for the spring 2023 municipal election. So as long as you guys are still good with that.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think I apparently I don't have anything else to say. Sorry, that was distracted.
Oh, no problem.
There was a question, but now's not the time.
Correct. All right. So if that's everything, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'd make that motion.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So meeting is adjourned. Thank you.